Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be providing my book review for the book Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher. This will be a completely spoiler-free review, so don't worry, not going to spoil anything in the book for you. For many people, this has been a long-awaited book. A lot of people had frustrations with the Rise of Skywalker and wanted things to be fixed from the movie. A lot of people liked the Rise of Skywalker and wanted to see extra material from it. A lot of people wanted to see Adam Christopher do a new book. And we've also wanted stories set in the post-Return of the Jedi, pre-Force Awakens timeline. That's a very ripe timeline for Star Wars storytelling. And yet again, they've produced another book in that timeline, and I'll discuss it here. The person who probably has been awaiting this the longest is Adam Christopher. For many of you who may not know, Adam Christopher was originally brought on to write a novel for the Mandalorian. It was a tie-in novel for the Mandalorian, and then almost as soon as it was announced, they canned it, as well as a lot of other Mandalorian projects, which you can probably figure out why. And so they promised they were going to give him another project, and instead they gave him this book, Shadow of the Sith. And instead of having to write a tie-in book about a potentially controversial person, now he had to write a tie-in book for a controversial movie. Definitely a step up. So I'm glad that Adam Christopher finally has a book in the Star Wars timeline, and I'm ready to talk about it. Personally, I'll say this is a big beefy book. It is probably the second biggest book in the canon for the adult novels. It is beat out in page count only by the massive book Thrawn Ascendancy Lesser Evil, and it narrowly surpasses the page count of Victory's Price, which came out a couple years ago. So this book is pretty big, and as such, it tells a very expansive story. This book, really, it's meant to tell a full concept and to wrap up a lot of storylines. It is not meant to leave things for future storylines. It is meant to wrap them up, tie them up in a nice bow, and be done with them. And so there are basically three main storylines. You have the Luke and Lando story, which starts separate and kind of interweaves. Then you have the second story featuring the villains in this book. You have Ochi of Bestoon, and then another villainous character that I won't get into because that would be a spoiler. And then there is a third storyline happening, which is you're following Rey and her parents, Dathan and Miramir. And I apologize if I'm pronouncing either of those wrong. I'm just going based off of how it read in the book, because I only read the physical books. But you have the three storylines, and they all start meshing and moving around each other, and I found it very interesting for that. To begin with, let me discuss Luke. Luke has been the most difficult character to write in the Star Wars novels thus far. They attempted to write a book with him back in 2015 called Heir to the Jedi, which, while being a fun book, just didn't get the character of Luke. It just felt off. It felt too juvenile, too silly, too much like some of the weirder EU books. Didn't feel like Luke. It felt like someone's version of Luke. Then we got, in 2017, the book Legends of Luke Skywalker. And I have nothing against Ken Liu. I think he's an interesting author, and I try not to be negative too much, but that book was just not good. It's one of the worst Star Wars books I've ever read. It was just too weird. It was like he literally didn't want to reveal anything, and he wanted to reveal everything at the same time. And he was so hemmed in with the story, and there were just so many weird choices, it just didn't work. And then recently, we got a short story in the Stories of Jedi and Sith book. While that book was amazing, 9 out of 10 of those stories were great. There was one bad story, and wouldn't you know, it was the Luke Skywalker story. So it's just been hard to find a good Luke story in the canon. And so many people, including myself, were excited to see if they could handle him well here. And what I'll say is they didn't do anything bad here, but they didn't do anything amazing either. Adam Christopher made a choice here, which I thought was interesting, which is to make Luke a point of view character, but you don't delve too much into his thoughts. There are several chapters throughout. Probably a decent chunk of the book is following Luke Skywalker. But a lot of that is essentially a limited perspective from the third-person narrator. And as such, we're not delving too much into Luke's psyche. We're not delving too much into his fight with the light side and the dark side, although that kind of shows up. And he doesn't have to deal with too much of Luke's language. Getting Luke's writing, his dialect right, is the hardest thing, I think, for a lot of writers. And so he doesn't actually talk too much in this book. He does talk a little bit, and when he does talk, it works, but it's not too much. So as a result, Luke is more of a cipher in this book. He basically tries to make him more of a blank slate so that it doesn't affect anyone. No one's going to be offended by the Luke in this, but I don't think anyone's going to love, oh my gosh, I love Luke in this book. It is a safe journey for the character. There are a few moments with his character and his Jedi Academy that I think work really well. And there's one moment in particular that has already been leaked that a lot of fans are interested in, but it's really short and it doesn't go too crazy as I would have expected. Going into the next storyline, another storyline is Dathan and Miramir and Rey. And let me just say, I was not expecting how good this storyline would be. I loved this storyline. In fact, if I could have written it, I would have written the entire book from their perspective, maybe had Luke or another Jedi kind of out there trying to help, but not actually write it from their perspective because they were such interesting characters. It was so interesting to see the different skills that Dathan and Miramir had and the way they used them to try to protect Rey. The protectiveness of the parents was really nice to read about. It was refreshing to read about a good family situation in Star Wars. The loyalty that they all had to each other, the love they had was just fantastic. And I really liked the way Dathan and Miramir were written, and I wish we could have gotten more. We probably won't get any more because this book, if you've seen The Rise of Skywalker, you know where they end up, and this book basically leads right up to that point. So, can't probably get more books from them, but I wish we could. I also really was interested in the way they did Lando in this book because he is not his scoundrelish character from the original trilogy or from Solo, but he also isn't the grizzled, sad guy from the sequel trilogy from Rise of Skywalker. He's kind of in the middle. You see, he is basically adjusting to this new normal for himself, and he's kind of scoundrelish, but he's also kind of grizzled and kind of kind now, and it's a very interesting back and forth that his character has in this book, and he's very much written in the middle. And as such, he was compelling as a character, but it just felt weird to read. And so it's not a fault of anyone. It was naturally going to feel weird because it's like meshing two different characters together. There are two villains in this book, as I said earlier. I will not discuss the second villain at all because it would get in spoilers. But the first villain is Ochi of Bestoon, which I thought was very interesting. Ochi has a lot of backstory and a lot of history in Star Wars, and I found his backstory fascinating. I found his psyche, the way he wanted to reach Exegol was fascinating. And boy, did I want to kill him after everything that he does to Dio in this book. Poor Dio did nothing wrong, and Ochi just abuses him so much. It's terrible. And so I found Ochi a really fascinating character, and I liked the desperation he had, that he was just trying to get Rey so that he could get in the good graces of the Sith and go to Exegol. One thing that I will say that Adam Christopher did really well here is the writing style. Oftentimes, new authors come in and their style just doesn't mesh well. Or authors come in with a really good style, but it's not a good Star Wars style, and so it feels weird. Well, Adam Christopher has a very, what I would call, polished style. He has already written several books of media tie-in fiction in the past. He wrote 2 novels for Elementary, the TV series, and then he has also written 1 book for the hit series Stranger Things. And so he has experience delving into media tie-in fiction and delving into a universe that's not his own. But he also has written well over a dozen original novels, which means that he's been able to craft his own style, and so he meshes his own style with Star Wars, and it just fits perfectly. If you've read the Phasma series, Phasma and Black Spire, or the Aftermath trilogy, or the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, or some of the other books in the later in this era of the canon, there are very distinct styles within them, but they all mesh into this general Star Wars feeling. And I think that Adam Christopher does the exact same thing. His style isn't as obvious as Alexander Freed's, which is so hard and depressing and military focused, and it's not as wacky and fun as Chuck Wendig, or as just dark and as brutal as Delilah Dawson. He doesn't have that particular angle to him, but he meshes everything well, which is something that is good, because there are a few authors, I won't name them specifically, but who just don't mesh with the Star Wars type of storytelling. So I was glad that he worked here. As alluded earlier, there's a lot of heavy lifting to do in this book. A lot of this book, the premise is, let's fix a lot of the issues with The Rise of Skywalker. It's talking about Ochi of Bestoon, fixing some of Luke and Lando and the Jedi Temple and other stuff. There's also a lot of cameos from the sequel trilogy. There were a few cameos that I was like, I see what you did there. And there was one cameo. Then I read it. I was like, ooh, okay, I have to read this. Ooh, there's one character, when they popped up, I was so excited. I just had to keep reading because I was like, ooh, okay. And then the character leaves. And I was like, darn it, come back. I wanted to read more of you. I would read an entire book of Luke and this character that shows up. It was so much fun to see him show. And so this book had a lot of heavy lifting to do. So it is a fun adventure, but it is also basically like a fix issue for making you like a story better. I would equate this to, it's similar to Catalyst is a prequel to Rogue One and way enhances Rogue One significantly for me. The difference is, I thought Rogue One was a fantastic movie, and this just makes it, and Catalyst just made it even more fantastic, and Catalyst is already just an amazing book in and of its own without Rogue One. This is a story that without The Rise of Skywalker is not going to be viewed as particularly fun. And it adds to The Rise of Skywalker, but it adds to Rise of Skywalker's deficits, not to its strengths. So it basically makes you feel okay about The Rise of Skywalker. It won't make you feel amazing about it like I feel Catalyst did for Rogue One. So it has a very tough needle to thread in this book. I do not envy the job that Adam Christopher and the team at Lucasfilm and Del Rey had. It was a tough job to do, and I think they handled it admirably. But it doesn't, because of that, it just feels more rough, and it feels unfortunate to read. And my final criticism is more of an abstract. This book suffers from a lack of, I don't want to say heart, but I'll say a spark. Some of my favorite novels, such as Master and Apprentice, or Bloodline, or Catalyst, or A New Dawn, or Thrawn, those books all have this key component that is just, it's a spark that just makes me love them, love the writing style, love the characters, love the story, whatever. There's just a spark to it. And it's an instinctive, you see it, you know it when you see it. And unfortunately, this book doesn't have it. It's a well-written book. It is an excellent plotted, excellent character-driven for certain characters. Like, because you don't get too much of Luke, you get a little bit of Lando and a lot from Dathan and Miramir and Ochi. But it just doesn't have that spark that it just needed. It just feels like a well-produced book. It does not feel like a favorite book. So I feel bad not giving it a perfect score, even though it did so much right. It just doesn't do it well enough to earn a spot among the upper echelons of the books. It just earns among that was a really good book. That was a good book. All right, what's the next book? Like, I wanted to every time I've reread some of my favorite Star Wars books, I've set it down and said, ooh, I wish I could just reread it right now. Go right back to it. I don't feel that way with this. I feel like I could sit on this for a while, maybe even never reread it, and I'd be fine. I had a fun time reading it. It was lots of fun. I read this book in a day and a half. It was lots of fun, but it just lacks that spark, and I don't know how to put that better. But that's how I feel about it. So overall, I would say that this book had some enormous hurdles to overcome. It overcame them. It had to tell a fun story and fix problems with The Rise of Skywalker, which I think it does both admirably well, but again, lacks that certain spark. And I have a few other teeny tiny issues with it that I can't get into because of spoiler reasons. So I would give this book a 7.5 out of 10. Solid work. Not amazing, but a solid book. Probably well worth your time to read. So, if you've read this book, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. If you're interested in reading this book, let me know why you're interested. And please subscribe to the channel. I have tons of Star Wars and other content, Star Wars book related content, Star Trek books, whatever. It's all anything book related. You'll probably find it on the channel. So hit the subscribe button, please. So until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.